I'll get started here. I'm Diane Leeds. I'm the co-chair with Yahira of the Voter Education Outreach Advisory Committee. Thank you all for coming today. Um, how I want to start the meeting today is to acknowledge the absence of one of our dear colleagues, Sarah O'Brien, who has been with the VEOAC since formed even. This is the first meeting that she will not be at, and just wanted to acknowledge her absence and say that we will miss her very, very much. Okay, so what we're going to do today in terms of introductions, if you have an event or some information you want to share with the VEOAC, this would be the time to do it. So what I would ask you to do is to go on camera and come off mute and introduce yourself, your organization you're with, and what the event is that you want to make the VEOAC aware of. And I'm going to start with Yahira.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. We're feeling rejuvenated and excited for this meeting. I want to invite everyone to our Thrive's next nonprofit and advocacy series. We're going to talk about the influence and impact of media in an advocate's journey. So if you're a policy advocate and want to learn how to work with the media, join us on June 27th from 10:30 to 12, and it'll be virtual. I put the link in the chat. And for those folks coming in, the link in the chat for the event that I'm inviting you all to come to is in the chat. And if anyone else wants to go, I won't popcorn on anyone, but please introduce yourself and tell us what you're inviting people to know about. It could be an announcement, an event, a voter outreach opportunity.
Hey everyone, I can pop in.
Okay.
This is my first time in this space. I'm Elias. I work with Fresh Approach, but I'm here because Fresh Approach, we work to make healthy food more affordable and accessible in and around the Bay Area, but we're also part of the South Bay Food Justice Collaborative, and I help run the policy advocacy and funding subcommittee that we just created. So the South Bay Food Justice Collaborative is basically a community of practice consisting of organizations and individuals working towards food justice in the South Bay region, so Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. And yeah, since we just formed this new subcommittee, we're looking for opportunities to advocate for and spread awareness about food justice and food systems issues across the South Bay. So figured this would be a good space. If there are any events coming out later this summer or fall, we'd love to provide any support and sort of give a food systems, food justice lens to these events. So we're here to bring support and energy.
Thank you, Elias. Thanks for being here.
Anyone else? No events coming up this summer? Nothing you want to share with us? Anything you need any assistance on?
Wow, you guys are gonna have a great break during this summer. It sounds like you're taking a vacation.
Well, I guess not a lot going on. So should we just move on to the next item?
Yes, and if you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself, please put your name, organization in the chat. We want to know where you're coming from and what you're expecting out of this meeting.
So Jim, I guess we'll turn the meeting over to you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Diane and Yahida. Let me see if I can get the screen proper for me. First of all, we're going to need to screen share, so you can give us access to screen share. That would be great, because we have a little PowerPoint presentation we're going to share with your group. And if you can do that, that would be wonderful. But first of all, some introductions here. There's a lot going on in elections right now. Obviously, we're preparing for the November 5th presidential general election, and everything is going in play, and we'll cover some of those highlights with you shortly. But more importantly, I'd like to introduce to you a new staff member that's going to be a primary staff liaison to all of our advisory committees, and that's Penny Boyd. And Penny's here with us. She's going to be taking over Sarah's space here and will be your primary contact person for all VEOAC and advisory committee type of communications. She'll be the administrative support. She's going to also be in charge of the budget and a variety of other programs that might be coming on down the line. Penny has been appointed by Mr. Church. She is also the department's diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator for our department activities. And she brings years of experience in elections. Very passionate about inclusion, voter participation, and making sure that everybody has a voice in the electoral process. So I'd like to just have everybody welcome Penny as our new VEOAC and advisory committee staff liaison representing Mr. Church in the department. Penny, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good.
So Penny, if you could put your email address in that so we know how to get a hold of you, that would be wonderful.
Certainly, I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
And we also have Tom Day with us here, who is supervisor for elections, and he also will be taking an active role or a backup. If you need any assistance, of course, you can always go to Tom and you can go to me. And there's a lot of things that are going on in election. So let me just give you a brief overview of where we're at and kind of where we're going. And it is very brief because, as I mentioned, this is going to be a very large election, a very consequential election in our nation and local history. So it's important that we have as much inclusion, as much activity, and as much voter participation and outreach as possible for this particular election. So let's go to the second slide here, if I can. Just giving you a quick overview of the last primary election that we had on March 5th. Turnout was relatively low as compared to previous elections. We had about 174,000 ballots cast. We have 435,000 registered voters. We have an eligible voter population of about 510,000. So we have 435 registered voters, but there's a good 90,000 out there, or more or less, that are eligible and not registered to vote. And that's the target population to make sure that we bring into the process. As I mentioned, the turnout this last election was 40%. Big election in terms of all of the different ballot styles. A ballot style is a ballot that is unique to each person, really. And each voter lives in a city which has different districts and has different congressional districts, assembly seat districts, Senate districts, and all of those for that particular voter comprise a ballot style. And then we have, 4 different languages, and when you combine the number of ballot styles and languages, we had 880 different ballot styles in the last election, which was incredibly large for a primary election. And we had 266 reporting precincts in the last election. And here's a map that kind of gives you a little overview of the percentage turnouts. So move on to the next page here. The November presidential election will have over 120 offices and 160 seats up for election. A lot of those are local, of course, and many state and federal. So it is a large election in terms of the depth and breadth, the number of candidates and issues that will be up for election. In terms of our elections infrastructure, we will be operating with 49 vote centers. We will have 61 ballot drop-off locations, which is an increase over the last election, where people can drop their ballots off, convenient locations. Most of them are at city halls, public facilities. Another just great opportunity for people to cast their ballots is remote accessible vote by mail. And it's available to all voters. And that's the ability for voters to call in, and we provide them a link, and they can actually see their ballot online. They can fill it out, they can mark it, print it, and then they have to mail it or drop it off But again, in the spirit of making voting accessible to all, the remote accessible vote by mail ballot is another option that people can take advantage of. You know, we do mail out 435,000 ballots to everyone. So everyone does receive a paper ballot in their hand. That's the beauty of vote by mail under the Voters' Choice Act, is that there really is no excuse for not voting if you're a registered voter, because you will get that ballot delivered to you and you can send it off, you know, from the ease and convenience of your home. You can put it in the mailbox, you put it in a drop box location. You could also come to a vote center, drop it off there. We have curbside ballot drop off. Or if you want to cast your ballot in person on a machine, or if you have, you know, accessibility type of issues, the vote centers are there to provide services and be utilized in that manner. We have 3 vote centers that will be opening up in this election 29 days before, and that will be in North County. We'll be at South San Francisco Public Library. We have, of course, a Tower Road facility at 40 Tower Road, and then we have our South County area. We have our vote center at 555 County Center. Those are 30-day vote centers. Those far exceed the requirements of the law under the Voters' Choice Act. We have vote centers open 10 days before and 4-day vote centers before election day. But we go one step further in San Mateo County and open our vote centers in North Central and South San Mateo County 30 days before. And remarkably, they do get a lot of utilization for people that do need assistance in answering questions, maybe going on vacation, you're going to be out of the country. And that really does provide a lot of help to folks that need services with elections. You know, the last election, November 2020 general election, presidential election, we look at what the voter turnout there, it was about 85%. That was a large election, one of the largest in the county's history in terms of turnout. And we anticipate that this one will be just as large. So we should have a pretty good voter turnout in November, but it will be dependent a lot on your efforts in making sure that we get our word out for people to register to vote and to vote. And that is what the Voters' Choice Act is all about, and the VEOAC is all about. I kind of covered this. Our vote centers and drop box locations are on our website, smcvote.gov now, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks, there's still .org, but we changed everything over to .gov recently, but smcvote.com, or Penny, jump in here.
Yep.
Did we got that over to gov now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
All right, so smcvote.gov, go to our website. You'll be able to look at all of the vote center and ballot drop box locations throughout the county and other very important information on voting. Voter education outreach. This committee and the efforts that you put forth over the years have received statewide and even national recognition in terms of the effectiveness of reaching out to all populations, but particularly those targeted communities that have not traditionally participated in the electoral process. And this is an example of some of the things that we do. Diane here is a champion in trying to take up as much space as possible on these pages. And she's done a really good job. And so congratulations to you, Diane. This is a lot of Diane's work, Sarah's work, and all of the elections really, in getting the word out on voter education and outreach and notices that go out. We have a statutory requirement under the Voters' Choice Act to at least provide 2 direct mailings to voters that are registered. And we do that. And we're going to have some direct mailings coming out pretty soon. Tom, you might be able to, pin down the dates a little bit better than I am in terms of our direct mailers. Jump in on that.
Yeah, so we're getting them all pulled together right now, and then we'll start sending those things out in another month or so.
Do we have the date that they're going to be going out?
I don't have that date yet.
Okay,
Jim.
but we tend to get it, send it out before we send out our sample ballot and voter information pamphlet, which is we send that out about 40 to 45 days before. So we'll have a postcard that'll be going out, letting people know that the election's coming and to be on the out for their sample ballot and voter information pamphlet. All of us be on the lookout for that, because that is a comprehensive document that just covers absolutely everything in the election and as it relates to your specific voting precinct and area. So be on the lookout for that. We will be sending out postcards in terms of contacting our voters before the election. One will go out before the sample ballot and voter information pamphlet. And then the other one will be about a week before election day, just to remind everybody that election day is coming. And when we talk about election day under the Voters' Choice Act in California, really, we do have an election day, obviously, it's November 5th, but election day really starts 29 days before the election, because you will have that ballot in your hand and you can cast the ballot early. And so voting is over a period of time, and election day tends to be one of the largest voting turnout days in that 29-day period. But that weekend before and election day are really peak. People get out there, but you can vote anytime throughout the 29-day voting period. And you'll be seeing more and more of these flyers. Those of you who are here that want information to send it out to your communities, contact Penny, Tom, our office. We will get you brochures for any events that you might have and any information that you might want to share with your clientele. Recruitment and staffing. We are all about people. In order to run an election, there are two foundations to an election. One is people, and the other is technology. Without either one of those, an election cannot be conducted. So we will be hiring at least 600 extra health staff in all of our units, and we'll also be bringing on about 300 volunteers, both student and adult volunteers, to help us run the election. So all in all, you'll be seeing about 1,000 people this election that in some way or another will be involved in the electoral process. And we are in the process of hiring. We have Tom as a supervisor and Chantal also that lead our hiring efforts. And these are some of the brochures that are out there. They're good paying jobs. We train you. And we need people, though, that are dedicated. The most important quality that we're looking for right now is attitude, a positive attitude, excitement and passion for elections. We're looking for you. We want you on board. We want you to be part of our team. And you'll be hearing and seeing more of these flyers as they go out. If you need some, let's make sure that we get you flyers in your hand regarding our hiring practices, so you can share that with your clientele also as potential jobs that are coming down the line. And we're in the middle of that right now. We're starting that as we speak. Here's some important dates for the election. As you can see, we got candidate filing that's going to start on July 15th. That's when candidates are going to be running, actually begin filing papers. And the dates kind of speak for themselves. The sample ballot and voter information plan will be mailed on September 26th. So that postcard I was talking about will be mailed sometime the week before to let people know that the sample ballot and voter information pamphlet will be coming. Vote by mail ballots will be mailed on October 7th. So that's 29 days for the elections thereabouts. We're trying to get them out a little bit sooner, but by 29 days before, those ballots are mailed. As I mentioned, we'll have 3 vote centers open. October 21st is the voter registration deadline. And don't fret if you miss the deadline, because then you can go to any vote center to register and cast the ballot. In California, you can register to vote and vote on the same day. Before, there was 15-day cutoff, and but that provision of the law has been changed. You can register to vote and cast the ballot on the same day. And we also have conditional voter registration, which that's probably what would occur if you wait on the last day and never were registered, is that you will be able to vote conditionally the moment we verify, and the state of California voter registration database verifies your eligibility, then your ballot would be counted. So again, voters that have not been registered, wish to vote, go to a vote center and basically conditionally vote. It's called conditional voter application, conditional voter voting, and your vote will be counted if you meet the qualifications to cast the ballot. We will open open our 11-day vote centers. Again, those will be outlined in our website and where they're located. Those locations will also be in your sample ballot voter information pamphlet. So will the 4-day vote centers. Of course, election day. Now, election day is an important day, of course. So if you're mailing your ballot, make sure that you get it postmarked on that day. Take an extra step. Go to the post office. If you're not going to drop it off at a drop box before 8 o'clock on election day, or at a vote center before 8 o'clock, go to post office and make sure that you see them physically stamp your ballot envelope. Because if it's stamped on election day before midnight and mailed, and we receive it within 7 days thereafter, it is a ballot that will be cast and counted. If you miss that deadline, the 12 o'clock on election day, or even if you do send it on election day and it doesn't get to us within 7 days thereafter, now this is the law, there's a 7-day grace period, your ballot may not be counted. Well, it will not be counted if it misses the 7-day grace period. So it has to be postmarked no later than election day and received no later than 7 days thereafter. But again, a tip, make sure that you get that ballot stamped by the post office. The other thing too, which is really just incredible, people forget to sign their ballot on. And then that goes into a rejected category, goes into a challenge category. We will then follow up and contact you, send you letters. If you give us, if we have your phone number, your email, we will contact you and say, by the way, your signature was missing, or your signature doesn't match. Sometimes the signatures do not match. So if we find that, we will then contact you. But there are over 2,500, 2,800, that a large number in that area that just simply didn't sign their envelopes, and had either a signature that we couldn't make out or mismatched. So signing that ballot envelope by the voter is absolutely essential for it to be processed properly. Let me see what else here. I think I pretty much covered some of the highlights there. The election will be certified on December 5th. Let's see if we go to the next slide here. Just want to cover a couple of other areas. Hopefully I'm not taking up too much time here, but there's a lot of information I wanted to share with you. One of the biggest areas that we are concerned about in this election is misinformation and disinformation. You are our eyes and ears. If you see any suspicious activity on websites, any misinformation that's confusing, giving you inaccurate information, by all means, let us know. We will report it immediately to the Secretary of State. We have partnerships with the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and we also have a cybersecurity consultant on board. We have a cybersecurity defense team to go into play if we see something like that. This is our cybersecurity defense structure. It's just a bird's eye view of what we do. I think it's important for people to know that we are very well prepared to fend off attacks, but it is a constant vigilant effort. And this is basically our team. And when we get into candidate filing, these are the folks that we will be coordinating this process as we start the election. So on that note, I'm going to end and see if there's any questions that you folks might have. But that's a general overview of our election at this point.
Jim, this is Diane. One question people might have is with the primary election, where there was the tie for second place for the congressional District 16 seat. And I think it was very interesting in terms of what San Mateo County had to do in order to, because you did a recount, but then there was some additional work you had to do in terms of postmarks. I wonder if you could just spend a couple of minutes describing what that process was.
Absolutely. Yes, it's almost the first time in the history of the state that there was actually a tie in a congressional district for the second position to be able to go to the runoff in November. That triggered a recount request by a voter. Recounts can be requested by any voter. And so we did receive a recount request from two voters, as a matter of fact, one in Santa Clara County and one in San Mateo County. That triggers a process of us having to go back to square one. And we do a logic and accuracy test, first of all, on our systems to make sure that they're accurate and that they're functioning properly. And then we run all of the ballots through again and to see if the initial count is accurate. It's called a machine recount. There are a couple of different recounts, either machine or manual. This one was a machine recount. And hats off to our election staff. The actual machine recount confirmed that every vote that was cast during the election was counted properly and cast properly. So we came in right on the money on that one. And then the other part of the process is that they can challenge certain ballots, because we have ballots, as I mentioned, a lot of people don't sign their ballots. And a lot of people have ballots that are not postmarked clearly. Those go into a challenge category. And the recount, both opponents and the opponents there were focused on the challenge ballots. They wanted to know what was our process and procedures for rejecting those ballots. In the final analysis, it came down to about 28 ballots that they had challenged. They removed a couple of them from the challenge process. We had about 26. And then we went through each one. The majority of those, about 16 of them, were signature issues. Basically they said it's a judgment call at that point in time. Just one moment, let me. And so 9 of them, 16 of them were signature issues, which we did not change our opinion on. They were rejected properly. 9 of them related to postmarks, the issue that you just brought up. So, and the postmarks there, what happened was there was either no postmark or postmarks that were blurry. And then the other question was, even if it was postmarked on election day, did it get to our office on time within the 7-day grace period? Of those 9 ballots that had postmark issues, we realized that 2 of them for sure, we realized for sure that they were late. What we did was we went to USPS, we got their logs, we look at what's called orange barcodes, different barcodes that are on the ballot. We verified the dates with USPS, and we determined that 2 of them were late with the orange barcodes, and 7 of them were mailed on time, and it was questionable whether they were received on time. We erred in the sense of in favor of the constituents, so we counted an additional 7 more ballots, and that's how that basically ironed out. We basically added an additional 7 that were challenged due to postmarks, but we really couldn't definitively determine when they arrived, but we decided to basically, if the person had sent it in on time before midnight on election day, we could not confirm that it was there before the 7th-day grace period, but we felt fairly confident that we could go and count those ballots. So in the final analysis, there were 7 challenge ballots that were accepted, and one of them went for Assemblyman Lowe, and there were a lot more ballots in Santa Clara County that were challenged and also changed the count in favor of Assemblyman Lowe, and he came in 2nd place. And now we have a runoff in November between Assemblyman Lowe and former Mayor Lacarta.
Question for Jim, real quickly, maybe you covered this. With vote centers, you noted something 3 pop-up vote centers. Is that something we had on the last election, or is that a new feature? And can you just comment a little bit about the difference between a pop-up center and other vote centers?
It is not a new feature. We've used it in previous elections, and the distinction between a pop-up vote center and a regular vote center is that it doesn't meet the requirement of being open for 10 or 4 days. A pop-up vote center may only be open for 1 day or 2 days before the election.
How is it determined where they're located?
Usually it's by request of a particular jurisdiction. to serve a particular population, that for whatever reason, maybe the city clerk or the community in general feels that it would be more helpful to have an additional location available. We see this, for example, on the coast side, a pop-up. We don't have a 10-day vote center over in La Honda or Pescadero or Loma Mar, which are really rural areas, or San Gregorio, but those communities still would like a vote center. But it really doesn't justify to have a 10-day or a 4-day there. So we would do a pop-up vote center, which would be open for 2 days, let's just say. So pop-up vote centers have all of the services provided by a vote center, except they're not open for the full 4 10-day period.
Would that be like a mobile van that would be parked somewhere?
That's a mobile vote center. We're also somewhat of a leader in that area too, in that we have one of the first in the Bay Area, if not the first, to do mobile voting. And a mobile vote center is basically, it is a commercial office building on wheels. You see, construction sites, you see these, trailers that are set up for construction, and they're full-fledged offices. Well, we will set up a mobile vote center in one of those mobile facilities. We've had it at Hillsdale Mall, Ceremony Mall, but the big one that's really popular is we set up our mobile vote center at the Half Moon Bay Airport on Highway 1. And that has been a very, very popular site. It's good visibility, and it is in an area that people really do need to have a vote center. So it's an interesting concept. We can move it around. It's not as easy to move as one thinks. It's not like a trailer that you just pull from one day to the next, because it requires a setup. Vote centers, by their very nature, have to have safe and secure connectivity to the state's voter registration database, because we're connecting with them every second that a vote center is open to determine voter registration status. And sometimes that gets a little tricky with mobile vote centers.
Right. Thanks, Jim. Any other questions for Jim about what he presented today?
Yes, I have a question. Hello, everyone. Jesse Burleson here, LSPC. My question is in relation to the deadline that you mentioned, where the voting center comes into play. You said that if someone were to miss the deadline, that they can go to a voting center and register and vote the same day. But it appears that you mentioned, like, if you missed the deadline, so this would happen after the deadline?
Yeah.
And how far, if you missed what are the deadline dates and what is the extra deadline date to correct it?
The deadline date by state law is 15 days before the election. Voters should register to vote. And what that enables us to do in a Voters' Choice Act environment where we have to mail a ballot, it gives us enough time to not only register the voter, but also to mail the ballot, and enough time for the ballot to be mailed back. So that 15-day period is the day when the state looks at, that's the official voter registration count for purposes of that election. It will go up again if people come in with conditional voter registration, but that cutoff is basically the foundation of the registration that occurred in that election. So 15 days before the election, the state says, we want to know everybody that's registered to vote, and that becomes our report of registration for this election as of that date. Now, if a person misses that date, then we have another provision of the law that allows conditional voter registration. And conditional voter registration means that you can go to a vote center, you can then conditionally register to vote. You fill out your registration. On the last day is when usually you get a lot of CVRs, the last couple of days, because we don't have enough time to verify your voter registration status. But let's say you were to come in on the 14th day or the 13th day before an election, we would have enough time at that point in time to actually register you to vote, check with the statewide voter registration database, clear your status that you haven't voted somewhere else in the state and that you meet all of the requirements for voting. And then you would be a registered vote. It wouldn't be a conditional vote at that point in time because we verified all of the conditions of voting, right? Because we have enough time. But conditional voter registration comes into play when a person waits to the last day or the second to the last day, or that weekend, and they go, oh my gosh, I forgot there's an election and I haven't registered to vote. You can go down there, and we don't have enough time to verify all of the voter registration status. We will do those verifications after election day, and then we will count that ballot after election day. Because remember, we have 30 days to certify an election. So your conditional voter registration, if it came in on election day, we set those aside. We'll count all of the 250, 350,000 ballots that come in. Once we've completed that process, then we go to the CVRs, we then check with the California Voter Registration Database to verify all of their voter registration status. If it clears, that ballot is then counted. So it's a process that occurs pretty much after election day, but your vote will be counted if you conditionally register to vote and you meet all of the conditions.
Thank you. I get it now. So basically, after the 15-day period, you have like 2 weeks to do a conditional ballot. Now, when they count them, because they haven't been verified yet, so they'll do all the ones that are verified first to give us like, this is the runnings, 1,000 for this person, 900 for this person, and now we're waiting for the conditional ballots to come in. Is that what that looks like in the end?
That's exactly what happened this time around. Okay, every day you have people calling us to say, okay, what's the raw count? What's the actual count for the report? Mm-hmm. We have a semi-official report that's issued of those that have been counted. We have 2 reports that come in. When a ballot comes into elections, we immediately scan them and we count them. So that's called a raw count. Mm. We've received the ballot. It's still in the envelope. We don't know. We haven't opened it. We don't know if it's conditionally going to be challenged because there's no signature or whatever. But all we know is that ballot was received there. So that's one count. Then when we open it, then we'll have the actual count. It'll tell you where that ballot went. It was either accepted or it was challenged, or it's a CVR or whatever, right? And so our reports kind of let you know the status that it's in. But in a close election, all of those ballots are coming down to the wire. I mean, it came down to even a recount to challenge some of those challenge ballots. So yeah, every ballot counts. And I guess that's the message. Okay, these elections are very, very close these days. And we're not seeing it just in the assembly seat. We're seeing them in local measures. We're seeing them in local contests. The elections are very close.
Right.
Every vote counts. Every vote counts all the way to the end.
Yes.
Right. The other thing, just to let everyone know, I think you do post this information on the SMC vote.gov website, where you can see how many votes or ballots have been counted and how many conditional voter ballots are still to be counted, and all that kind of detail.
Yes. Yeah, we have a very good report every day that you can see the raw count and the actual count. And that's just a service that we provide. We also have the official releases that we post for an election, that we will have semi-official reports released usually every 2 or 3 days during the certification process.
Great. Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? If not, I will turn the meeting over to Jesse from Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. You're up next to talk about AB, which one? AB 544.
Yes. And Jim, I wanted to mention also that these close elections. I know here in different counties, the local elections are decided sometimes by hundreds of votes, not thousands. And there's at least in most counties, large counties anyway, close to 1,000 eligible voters in the county jails who actually can serve as a swing vote in these close, tight local elections that often are overlooked and don't get counted. So I think that the emphasis on that demographic to make sure that their rights are guaranteed as far as have accessibility is important as well. And that's kind of like what we're going to talk about now. And so Jesse Burleson, Legal Services for Prisoners with Children and All of Us and None. I am presenting on AB 544, which is Assembly Bill 544, brought by Assembly Member Bryan out of Los Angeles. The goal of this bill is to expand upon a previous bill ran by Senator Ben Allen in 2015, 2016, that actually established the guidelines for the elections, I forget how, EAP, elections administration plan that established voting centers per every 50,000 eligible voters in the state, and voted by mail drop boxes per every 15,000 eligible voters in the state. Senator Ben Allen's office is actually reviewing the implementation of SB 450 to see how things have gone since its enactment. And one of the things that was brought to their office was that county jails were not included in SB 450. So even though they established voting centers and vote by mail drop boxes per every 50,000 and 15,000 eligible voters, they essentially excluded the eligible voters in the county jails. And so how this relates with San Mateo County is San Mateo County has had a minuscule voter turnout from the county jail. The elections division, per the VEOAC, has the numbers to show that, like out of 1,000 people, less than 100 actually participated in the voting cycle last election. And we are seeking to improve that. Upon us trying to do that, we attempted to go into the county jail to give voter education and do voter outreach for the election. And the sheriff essentially has authority, we'll put it like this: the election office doesn't have authority with the sheriff. And so you can't just go into the jail without permission of the sheriff. And the sheriff may say, well, we lack capacity to allow you or enable you to be able to access everybody in the jail, to talk to everybody in the jail, because of the design of the jail. It's not like everyone is in the same room where you can talk to them all at the same time. So you actually need time to go through the process of reaching everyone in the jail to ensure that they're informed, that they have, that they know that they have the right to vote and what their options are with respects to voting, and to give them the opportunity. So now this is a problem also, I think it's nationwide, but we're talking about, our county here and then other counties in the state. It's essentially the same problem, the same issue from county to county. San Francisco fares a little better because the elected officials in that county, want participation out of their county jails, and the sheriff is also so inclined. So they have a different model there that basically, helps the election officials get inside and do what they need to do. But AB 544 would establish voting centers throughout the state in every county jail facility. So initially the bill was to establish voting centers throughout the state, but it has received some, well, there's a budget issue, put it like that. Right now, California is in a budget deficit. And so the cost to the state to do this statewide had caused some legislatures to say, well, let's modify this bill for now and do a 3-county pilot for establishing voting centers in the jails. And so that's what's happening with the bill. So the bill has been modified down to have a 3-county pilot program. The assembly members, it originated in assembly. So the assembly has actually passed the bill, and now it's over to the Senate side. And it looks like it's going to receive favorable votes from the Senate side as well. So this is something that is coming down the pipe And I was in Sacramento yesterday. I went to Assemblymember Bryan's office and spoke with Kenneth Cruz, who is his legislative director. I asked him to come today to give a brief overview. He said that he was unable to because he was going to be in meetings at the same time that we're in our meeting. But he did want to come and present here. So I'm basically summarizing for him what he was going to say. And it's no different. We're basically at a point where voting is like a hot topic across the nation, and not just in California, but voting rights in jail facilities across the nation is also a topic in Washington, D.C. and Congress, as voter disenfranchisement laws that have been on the books, before we were probably even born, are actually under review right now. And people are, more positive about changing these laws so that people can participate in the voting process as long as they're eligible, no matter where they're at. So AB 544 is something that I think that the members of the VEOAC should not only have an interest in, but it's something that the VEOAC members should want to support, as it would essentially establish voting centers inside the county jails, which would give everybody inside the jail a right to vote and access to vote. So I just want to open the floor up to questions about the bill first, if anyone has any.
We have a question in the chat, Jesse. Jesse, thank you for the overview on AB 544, and thank you for your advocacy on the Hill yesterday on this bill. I know we've been talking about this topic for a while, and it's just aligning prior discussions to what's been happening here in San Mateo County. Beth had a question in the chat. Beth, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Sure. Thanks, Jesse. If that legislation passes 544, have the 3 counties that would be part of the pilot been identified yet?
Good question. I asked the same question when I was up in Sacramento yesterday, and the answer was that the 3 counties have not. The Secretary of State's office initially wanted it to be done by way of, how did he say it? Like where counties would bid, like for grants or whatever, and then determined that that would be probably not as cost effective, and so they would rather it be handpicked by the I guess by Brian's office. So the idea right now is to have a large, medium, small sample size for the pilot program. No, they have reached out to Alameda County, but they have not yet established contact with Alameda County. They have Los Angeles, of course, because Brian's from Los Angeles, and that's a large county. So I anticipate that Los Angeles will be one of the counties that actually is a part of it. That means that there'll probably be 2 slots open, and they're looking at Alameda, which means there's probably 1 more open. San Francisco already has, something in place that's running very similar and successful. So, they're a prospect. I did mention that San Mateo County, as far as the VEOAC membership, expressed interest in being a part of the pilot program, and I also Legal Services for Prisoners with Children recently signed on to be supporters. We submitted a letter of support for the bill. We're also created CEI, which is the Coalition of Electoral Integrity, which I will be asking members to, VEOAC members to sign on to individually or in organizational capacity. And so CEI will be meeting with the sponsors, which is the Ella Baker Center, and the other one escapes me right now. But there's two organizations that are the sponsors or co-sponsors for the bill. And we'll be meeting with them, asking if we can also join in sponsorship to help advance the cause. Kenneth Cruz wanted me to ask anyone on this call if wants to support, to send letters of support. If you can get to Sacramento on the 18th of this month, there will be a hearing, and they would like Me Too's in support of AB 544. I think it's very important legislation, as you know, things are progressing in society now to where voting, you know, is the only way we really can change things and improve things, you know, as we move forward in a more progressive fashion. So I think that AB 544 is essential when it comes to our progressive movements and things like that, especially when it talks about, you know, we need public safety, rehabilitation. So we need engagement from the population that, you know, has been ostracized from, you know, civic engagement for so long that they don't feel included or a part of it. Well, you know, once you start to engage and invest in something, then, you know, you will protect it. And so I think that civic engagement is a means by which people can also, you know, seek transition and seek reentry and seek rehabilitation, you know, but we have to open the door to them. And I think that through voting, you know, is one way to engage that demographic and get their buy-in.
Jesse,
So Jesse, sorry to jump in here, but I know one of the questions that the elections office would be considering is there any money in this bill to support those 3 pilot counties to implement this?
Yes. So that was the issue that came up for Assemblymember Bryan when he first proposed the statewide implementation, is that the price tag was too great for the moment. So when I spoke with, it's not $1 billion project, right? Because, you know, voting is seasonal. So since voting is seasonal, then as far as the county jail implementation goes, there would be phases where the voting centers are open and active and manned and staffed. And then after voting is done, they will be closed, right? And no reason to be manned or staffed until the next voting cycle. So the cost statewide, he didn't give me the number, but he said that there was some pushback against the number initially because of the budget deficit right now. And that's why they went to the 3 county. But it's the implementation is for the 3 county pilots, according to what I understood from Kenneth Cruz, is approximately 10 million.
So it would be fully funded for those 3 pilot counties?
Yes, by the state.
I guess this is a question for the elections office. Is this something that they've heard of before? Are they in contact already about AB 544 with the senator or the assemblyman?
No, we have not been in contact with this assemblyman. We're aware of the bill. It goes through various legislative review processes. The first process, really, when a bill is proposed, it goes through the California Association of Election Officials, our legislative committees. They review it. They have lobbyists. They dig into the details. Just what are the responsibilities? What are the costs? And what are the implications, policy and otherwise, and implementation. So that's one level of review. And yes, we're aware of that and part of that process in terms of review. The other area is that the elections office, as a nonpartisan office, we generally stay away from election type of issues, where it's candidates, measures, proposition. However, where it deals with elections and whether, there's an impact here that impacts our citizens in the arena of elections, that opens up a possible door for involvement and support. But the process at the county level is similar to the CACEO level, because these are policy decisions that are made way above my level, because it's really, for example, let's go back to the implementation of AB 2028, which was our vote by mail bill that was proposed by then Assemblyman Mullen, who was an assemblyman for San Mateo County. And that was to initiate vote by mail throughout the whole state of California. And there were pilot counties that needed to be selected for that. Well, he was the bill's proponent, and the method that he approached was, first of all, to go to the board of supervisors and get policy support for the bill, because there's anything that deals with funds goes through a policy process and an analysis. And then the Board of Supervisors will take through their legislative program, because they have a legislative program, will establish the policy direction for the county that is then willing to allocate funds and resources for a particular project. In that particular instance, yes, the board was highly supportive of the vote by mail ballot, it was AB 2028, and then approached Mr. Church as chief elections officer, and together they supported the measure and went to Sacramento and lobbied for it. At that point in time, there were a lot of, that was really a battle at that point. There was a lot of opposition to vote by mail in 2015 throughout California. So there weren't a lot of takers with respect to pilot projects. A pilot project always requires you step up a couple of different steps to do that, particularly like vote by mail. So there's resources that are going to have to be allocated, and those resources internally, whether they're covered by this proposition or not, it's an additional responsibility that's being undertaken by the jurisdiction, and those resources have to be there at the policy level, both the board and Mr. Church. So policy issues are dealt with the policy makers, generally at the elections office, generally and specifically at the elections office. We stay out of politics. We are nonpartisan. We do not get involved in that. But where there is a measure that directly impacts voting, then it would be analyzed and a proper position will be taken based on all of those variables that I just talked about.
Right, that makes sense. And as most of us on here are nonpartisan as well. So, but it's helpful context, Jim, to know how you've gone about this in the past, as it is serving a larger population of voters and for the benefit of all. In your eyes, so I heard a couple things, that it would be that this issue would be elevated through the Board of Supervisors, and then it comes down to the elections office. Is that the next step for Jesse and the ICA to take? What would you... a
policy position at the board level? They would ask Mr. Church for his input, which we would then go to the CACEO to determine their final analysis, because many of these bills have a lot of responsibilities that are hidden in the legislation. So the legislative lobbyists and analysts for the California Association of Election Officials, it really impacts the whole state. It may be a pilot project in a particular county, but ultimately this legislation is going to impact every election office in the state of California if it's passed, right? So the CACEO looks at that and then takes a position. So the CACEO Legislative Committee, and if the bill's been proposed and it's there, it'd be interesting to see where it's at. Is that bill still active, or is it past the? Okay,
Yes,
so
it is. It's active.
It's active currently right now. Okay, yes. So it passed that first hurdle.
It went
So-
through the assembly and now it's on the Senate side.
Okay. So that's the process. It's reviewed at the elections officials level. Then it's reviewed at the local official level, Mr. Church. It's reviewed from a policy point of view at the county level, because the county board of supervisors ultimately has to pay for it if there are additional costs. So those are the three layers that have to be addressed to support a particular.
So Jim, is there a good contact at the CACEO to find out if they're aware of this bill and if they've done any analysis or taken a position?
Trish Weber is the election official that is the chair of the legislative committee,
Okay.
and Connie Driscoll at San Mateo County County Manager's Office is the legislative board.
Okay.
So both of those could be looked at. You know, at this stage of the game, I think there's a neutral position out there on it right now. Neutral, not opposed, not against, but I'd have to follow up to see what.
That would
Thank
be
you.
good to know. Thank you.
Yes. So that's valuable insight. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. So one of the things that I mentioned to Brian's office was that I told him about the VEOAC, because I'm excited about the VEOAC, right? And I told him about some of the work we're doing, and then the problems that we encountered, and how, you know, the elections division, you know, they understand that has no authority with the sheriff when it comes to accessing the jail. They know this. That's why they're running the bill. So at the same time, the Brian's office is also seeking support to help get this legislation through. And so it was a two-way street. You know, I'm going to him, and then he's also reciprocating back and say, hey, well, you know, can you go back to the VEOAC and ask for their support? So I explained to him that the VEOAC was created by the elections division, which has to remain neutral. However, you know, LSPC and all of us and none, we decided to support the legislation and to create a separate independent coalition called the Coalition of Integral and Coalition of Electoral Integrity. And so the aim and purpose will not just be to support the initial aim will be to support AB 544, but it looks like it's going to be an ongoing legislative effort beyond just the pilot program, because eventually it's going to have to be expanded to the whole state. But because this legislation would essentially fix or solve the current problem or issue we're having, you know, in San Mateo County when it comes to accessing the county jail, then I think that, you know, that's kind of like instructive as to what our, you know, individual positions should be with respect to it. So I'd like to extend an invitation to VEOAC members to sign on to and join the Coalition of Electoral Integrity as individual members or as organizationally, if you are representing an organization. And what we would do within that coalition is continue to track and monitor the progress of AB 544 to support it, and to also do some outreach with respects to getting others involved who may not know about this legislation, but at the same time have a similar interest when it comes to you know, what the VEOAC mission is, and invite them on to the CEI so that they too can support AB 544. And, you know, eventually we get this legislation through. Like I said, it's already been happening. I believe it's already a 2-year bill that is in the 2nd year phase, if I'm not mistaken. And it has 2 co-sponsors that CEI will meet with and ask to join in co-sponsorship. I spoke with the legislative director, Kenneth Cruz, who said that he will speak with the co-sponsors himself about allowing us to also be co-sponsors. He's familiar with the work from Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, as we have, you know, our organization is 45 years old and has, you know, advanced, you know, from Prop 17, allow changing the state constitution to allow parolees the right to vote, to ban the box, and, you know, other legislation that we have, you know, helped advance over the years. So, you know, they are inviting us to the table, and we like to do this, you know, together with you all here in San Mateo County, you know, to help get this passed together.
Jesse, thank you so much for the presentation on AB 544. I know we've been talking about it for quite a while, but it's nice to hear a live update about all the work that you've been doing and all the advocacy. We can pass along that information along with the materials that Jim's office shared with us today. I'd love to have the PowerPoint to share with folks on the call along with the recording. So before we move on, just want to note that, Jesse, can you put your information in the chat so that people can get in contact with you if they'd like to learn more about the work that you're leading?
Yes, absolutely. I'll put the information in the chat. Y'all familiar with Eric Sapp? Eric Sapp is going to also be preparing a sign-on letter for support, and also we will, you know, reach out to those who contact us about joining the Coalition for Electoral Integrity as well. Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the next topic. If you have a question, please put it in the chat for Jesse. We have another presentation to go to, and then we will wrap up. Okay, handing over the mic to Diane. Go ahead, Diane.
Okay, so what I'm going to try to do is very quickly go through some recent research that has come out from the Center for Inclusive Democracy. So let me share my screen. Okay, so essentially the Center on Inclusive Democracy, which is led by Dr. Minnie Romero from the USC and the Price School, who's also done a lot of work with San Mateo County on implementation of Voters' Choice Act and its impact on voters. So they're having this webinar series that basically had 5 different webinars, which are listed here. And all of the information in terms of 4 of the 5 have written reports, both like a 3-page summary, as well as a detailed report that covers each of these topics. The one that I'm going to focus on mostly today is the second one, the one that's in red, so voter messaging in California, because I think there was a lot of good information in terms of when you're putting together your voter outreach strategy and your messaging, what are some of the key things that you should focus on? So maybe Ahira, you can also type this link into the chat, because that's where you will find links to they recorded all the webinars, so they do take a little while before they post them, but they also post there the full report and the 3-page summary reports. So there's a lot of information there. So again, I'm going to try to go through this somewhat quickly.
I'll put it in the chat, Diana, and I'll also include your PowerPoint along with some links in the follow-up email.
Perfect. So basically, as I said, the one I'm focusing on is the voter messaging in California and how they pulled this report together. They did an in-person survey that they conducted between January 10th and February 7th of this year. They had a representative sample of 11,827 eligible voters. So again, they were not just focused on registered voters. So anyone who was eligible to vote, so an adult citizen. And they really tried very hard to get a representative sample in terms of demographics based on what the respondents self-reported as their ethnicity. So as you can see, there is a 44% white, 35% Latino, 15% AAPI, and 8% Black. The survey was conducted in English and Spanish, and all of the questions were really focused on the 2022 election. So again, I'm just going to go over some of the key findings. So one of the main reasons for not voting in 2022 was due to lack of interest. So over a quarter of the eligible voters did not vote because they just weren't interested. Now, the other top reasons people didn't vote were they either weren't registered or they did not like the candidates. The interesting thing is the reason for not voting varies a bit by race and age, that a lack of interest was the highest for Black and AAPI eligible voters. Less than a quarter of the Latino and white respondents cited this reason, and young voters were more likely to cite a lack of interest versus voters age 65 or older. The next key thing in this study was there's a lot of concerns about voting access and ballot security. So actually a lot of what Jim today in terms of just, how those, all the different security measures that the county takes and all the additional steps that were taken to go through those 16 ballots that didn't get counted in the first run through. I think is very important to, weave into any outreach that we do. And I was actually a little surprised that this came up as a big issue in California, because California is not a state that, at least I didn't think that concerns about ballots and ballot tampering was really a big issue. So, but there was over 30% of the eligible voters did have concerns about voting in the November election. Black and white eligible voters were more concerned than Latino and AAPI. And the key concerns were, was my ballot being counted? Long lines and ballot tampering. The thing that's interesting is, at least with the first concern, this is something where ballot tracks where voters can sign up to have, their ballot act, and actually is one of the, they did a detailed report on ballot tracks, how it was implemented, who's using it. So that's on the CID website. But white voters had higher concerns about ballots being counted accurately, whereas the other groups were more concerned about long lines. Again, there was a difference by age. Younger voters cited long lines getting their ballot and knowing where to vote, whereas older voters were more concerned about security issues and the delivery by the post office and whether their ballot was counted or whether the ballot was tampered with. And not surprisingly, voters with a disability, their major concern was long lines and vote center accessibility. The other thing that was found, and I think we've heard this in the San Mateo specific research that has been done by CID, that official county materials are really the top sources for voter information. And that therefore it makes it really critical that these materials continue to be easy to understand, using simple language, quality translation, and also readability for voters with visual disabilities. The next trusted source was friends and family, especially for Latino, white, and young voters. And it was clear, again, no surprise here, that eligible voters of color, young voters, or those with a disability need active outreach, that, we can't just rely upon the materials they get from the county. So the recommendation that really came out of this report, this analysis of these over 11,000 respondents, that the best messages to use are things that explain voting options. And actually, I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. In the full report for this voter messaging in California, they have very specific messages that they tested with respondents. So I just have a few of them here, but again, if you go into the full report, you can get more information about what language they used and how well it tested with different voters. And most of their analysis was broken down by race and age. So again, the core message, which I don't have here, but the core message should explain what the voting options. So again, just letting people know all the different ways that they can vote. Another one that tested well was doing that core message, but using community empowerment language, such as, this was the example that they tested. California Civil Rights Organization urged people to make their voices heard by voting in their communities. Another one that was important was using a core message emphasizing safety and prohibiting voter fraud. Again, and I think that San Mateo County has a lot we can say about what we have done to minimize any fraud. So again, the message: California's election officials have worked to ensure that all these voting options are secure and safe, with protections in place to prohibit voter fraud. So again, there's more messaging suggestions in the full report. And that is pretty much it. I know that was pretty quick. I'm gonna stop sharing. I don't know if there's any questions. Whoops, where am I? On this again, I went very, very quickly. The main thing is I would advise folks to go to the Center for Inclusive Democracy website and look at especially this voter messaging report, because I think in the larger report, everything is broken down by in more detail than what I went through here. So that was my quick run through.
That was really helpful, Diane. Thank you for sharing with the group.
I can give some feedback on that. I think I found that to be interesting data. And this is this just from San Mateo County results?
No,
or?
it's actually is 11,000. The survey respondents came from throughout California. So
Okay.
actually there is no county specific feedback. So they again, they would have to have had a much larger sample size.
Yeah, because I was going to say, this seems like to be the issue throughout the state. It's, you know, in with certain, you know, demographic. Me, I'm a black man, but I'm half Mexican, even though I might not look it. But I grew up in a Mexican household, the only black guy in the family, and so it's like, I don't know, it's interesting. Our attitude, meaning on the black side, I know that our attitudes towards voting, it could be summed up like, it doesn't matter who the president is, it doesn't change anything in the hood or on the block, you know. And so I think the way to get people's attention is through having something that does, you know, result in some changes for them, which would be a local election or a local candidate. I think we need to be like thinking like having some different representation on the ballot that people can get behind, you know, that will inspire them to want to vote, because they're like, oh man, so-and-so is running. You know what I mean? Right now, they don't know any of these people, you know, and you know, that's kind of like the general attitude of the younger generation. To get their attention, you have to have someone representing that they know or that they feel some type of connection with. Otherwise, you know, their interest will not be there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so I would definitely direct folks to the last well, it was a panel discussion that was held yesterday. So it was the last of this webinar series. And you know, they covered things similar to what you brought up, Jesse. It's like, it's, you know, voter outreach is not a one-time thing. You've got to build the relationship. It's continuous, needing to simplify the ballot, needing to, you know, spend more money on voter outreach. It's very uneven in terms of how much money is available to different counties in California, and that state needs to really step up. And that this whole thing of, you can't just expect the election to change people's mind about whether government is working for them. You really have to get them engaged in, you know, going to city council meetings and being on boards. And it's a whole cycle that you've got to start up, and not just rely on one election to all of a sudden turn everybody into very active voters. So I would definitely, if you have 45, and all these webinars are just 45 minutes long, so they're very digestible. And the one that I attended yesterday was really valuable. They had someone from, gosh, I can't remember, but it was a good mix of folks on the panel and some really interesting feedback in terms of how to engage voters more. Any other questions, or turn it back over to Yahira?
Okay. Well, Diane, I appreciate you summarizing that, as some folks may not have had time to join these webinars, but I did put the link in the chat. And if you're interested in learning more about what CID is and what they do, and watching any of the recordings, you can go on to that link. I will put it again in case you missed it, because I know there's a lot going on in the chat. And I will also include it in the follow-up. Okay, so it's that time, and I will start wrapping up because there are no questions left over, and I will include all this information in the follow-up. If you, Jesse, you have a question? I can't hear you.
I guess I can put it in the air. So we're looking at this upcoming election in November. We still have to figure out how to engage or get inside of the county jail. We attempted to for the March election, and we were unable to get inside. So I think that, you know, we have to constantly put this in the front, is that we're still trying to get into the county jail to do voter outreach inside. We need to help the elections division by you know, figuring out how we can get in there and you know, engage people in there. This last election, as was mentioned, was decided by less than 1,000 votes. There was a tie. People in the jail could have decided to tie. You know, the sheriff is an elected position, so maybe the sheriff has an interest or a non-interest, you know, in having people in custody vote. You know, if they don't like the sheriff, then they'll probably, you know, vote that person, vote for the other person. Who knows, you know? But I think that we need to keep with this on the front burner here, and ask for individual support as we move forward to try to get in this jail. So we're going to have, I guess, on the agenda coming up again, Yahara, about getting into the San Mateo County Jail to do voter outreach. So
Yes, of course. That's a good reminder, Jesse, that our next VEOAC is on August 14th. It'll be in person at CZI, so I hope to see everyone here in person to rally around what's next for the November election. As promised, Thrive will have completed our Thrive Toolkit, and we'll be looking to you all to be the trainers for some of the voter outreach for this November election. We are in the planning stages of hosting candidate forums to learn more about the candidates. So just stay engaged with Thrive and some of the work that we're doing. I will follow up with all the information and pass along any information that you want the VEOAC members to see. Hopefully the follow-up can go out next week, so you all have this information top of mind. With that, I would like to thank everyone for all your time, effort. Thank you to the elections office. Thank you, Jim, for educating us on some of the structures and the updates. And Jesse, thank you for all your advocacy up on the Hill. Diane, thanks for bringing your learnings and findings from the webinars from CID. Very important for us to stay engaged what's happening at a state level. And with that, I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day, and let me know if you have any further questions. See you all next time. Bye-bye.